My name is Nolan Lampkin, and last year I raced the BMW S1000rr. Going into the racing season, I had no idea on anything about racing a BMW. The BMW is completely brand new to me, and I had no clue. I was just sitting at home on my computer scrolling through, trying to find any information about how do you actually build one of these bikes. The year before, I raced the 600, which is a different class. The speeds are totally different. Everything's quite different. In that class, last year in Atlanta, we were able to get on the podium. In New Jersey, we got top 5. After the beginning of the race, we were down in like 10th, 12th place, but we fought our way through the pack.
Nolan Lampkin, coming from a garbage start, was able to work his way up to 5th place. What a run for Nolan Lampkin, a podium finisher from early on this season.
And then we were doing times at the very end, only a few tenths off the leaders. So we knew what we could do, but it was really just getting the bike and getting everything else kind of organized. Before the season, I was just sitting at home trying to figure out how do you actually build one of these bikes. And I was just scrolling online, trying to watch videos, trying to find any information that I could about the BMW, what goes into it, and how do you actually go about that process. And now that it is the off season, we're working and building on stuff for next year, working with the Tom Wood Powersports group. It's a beautiful day here in November in Indiana. Normally we don't get snow this soon or this deep, but you know. To describe the build on my BMW, I'm going to use a similar format to what I've used on my website before when I've detailed previous bike builds, going into the controls, the overall miscellaneous different things, the suspension, the electronics, and along with the braking and engine. So starting out with the controls, it's one of the first things that you need if you're taking your bike out to the track. You don't want to be dragging your foot pegs on the ground. You want to be able to adjust the handlebars so it can actually fit you properly. We used Eval Technology handlebars and rear sets. We love them. We've used them for over 4 years. They're incredibly durable. We've crash tested them enough. They're a set and forget it. You're not needing to think about anything else. Especially with the BMW, they've got a unique way that the foot peg actually attaches, where the bolts go in tangentially instead of against the frame. So that combined, plus Steve has a great design for the front handlebars where you don't have to worry about over torquing the handlebars because they've got a different kind of set screw in them, which is great. Where on the 600 VIR, we had it where we actually tightened down too much, and then I was having this weird pump-like feeling in the front end and didn't know what it was, and it was just because the handlebars were too tight, it wasn't allowing the forks to properly move. So the way that Steve at Eval Technology has handlebar clamps designed is great. We love them. They're a set it, forget it, and we don't really have to think about anything else. We also use domino grips. I just personally love the way that those feel. They've got the best grip feeling for me. Once you kind of find your grip, you kind of stick with that for a while because you know what you're feeling. And I love their grips. You don't have to worry about any grip glue. You don't have to worry about anything else. Both of those are actually available from Superbike Unlimited, and I just love the products. And then for the other miscellaneous things that go along with a bike build, the things that people may not necessarily think of when they're talking about a bike build. For the windscreen, we use the Puig R Racer. It's a huge windscreen, especially for the BMW being on the 1000. It creates a big hole, and I'm able to fit in, tuck in quite nicely behind it. I am one of the taller riders in the field, and having that was always quite nice. We used RNG crash protection, so that was your case guards, shark fin, tank protectors, things like that. The RNG stuff worked really nice for us, and we had a few Skittles down the road, and they worked quite nicely. The bodywork that we used this year, we had issues like at Road America. We actually blew out our belly pan because literally the way that we were moving with the bike and things, it didn't create enough room between the front tire and the belly pan. So the front tire hit the belly pan when it was extended and then exploded. So we ended up having to sit out of a qualifying session in Road America in Wisconsin just because the belly pan exploded and cut up our tire, did a bunch of crazy stuff. And then the other miscellaneous thing was cooling. We were cutting huge holes in the side of this bodywork. I mentioned it before in I think our New Jersey race recap video, but literally we're cutting huge holes in the side of the bodywork. That's not because of the bodywork manufacturer, but that's just something with the BMW. The BMW getting the cooling that you need, the bike ran super hot. And with that, we're cutting these huge holes just to get the cooling. That's not something I would have really expected, but nevertheless, the more holes we cut in it here, cut this hole in it here, along with this big one down here in the belly pan as well. And that's just allowing the heat to flow from outside of the bike. Let it pass through the radiator and then get out of the system. Whenever I was behind somebody else, if we didn't have the holes cut in it, the bike would be on its limit. Even at Barber, with these huge holes cut in the bike, it was still hot. That's just one of the things with the BMW. If you're racing in the Northwest and it never gets hot, you never really have to worry about this stuff, but if it does get hot out, you may have to do with your bike is cutting these holes in the side. And also this year we used these Samco Sport radiator tubes. We've used their radiator tubes for years and we love the product. It helps eliminate all of the metal tubes that you've got so you don't have to worry about the crush points and things like that. Next up in our bike build process, talking about the suspension. We used K-Tech suspension this year. It was my first year using K-Tech, and we had some different building and learning moments kind of throughout this season. We started out the year using the through rod K-Tech stuff, and midway through the year, we ended up switching back to the DDS system. So what is the difference between the two? The through rod's essentially driven from MotoGP technology, and in theory, it's supposed to be one of the best things for the bike. For us, we had some issues with that where we were actually one of the only people running the through rod system from K-Tech here in the US. And with the US, we're running the Dunlop tire. And with the Dunlop tire, it just changes how the bike feels dramatically compared to other countries and other tire manufacturers. One of the things that is with Dunlops, they're a lot stiffer, and that changes the way the bike feels entirely. So using the through rod system, which has been tested in BSB, which has been tested overseas, but they're all running the Pirelli tire. And I just had such a weird feeling on the bike. At Laguna, I was honestly pulling my hair out. I love Laguna, and the feeling that I always get from that place is amazing. And then this year when I was on there with the through rod system, I felt like I was throwing darts in a black room. I didn't know what was happening. I had no feeling back from the bike. We think that there's stuff that we can do to help really dial in the system, but with us being one of the only people actually running the system, there just wasn't enough data, especially for the BMW, on how to actually get it to work. I had no front end feeling. That was the big thing, is I had no front end feeling. I couldn't tell what happened as soon as I leaned the bike into the turn. I'd be braking and you trail the brakes into the apex and I'd start turning the bike in and I just had no feeling. I didn't know what was going on. We switched to the through rod system, which is a similar system in a similar way that it's set up to the Yamaha R6 bike that I raced last year. And we had great luck with that. We're also running the K-Tech rear shock. The K-Tech rear shock worked great. We never had any issues with that. And again, everything that we've got, all the suspension you can get from Superbike Unlimited. Next, moving on to the electronics for the BMW race bike. All the electronics come from Alpha. The nice thing about racing the BMW is you don't need to worry about marrying two different manufacturers' things together. You get the one kit from Alpha. Alpha is the official BMW racing partner. They're the ones who do all the production and all the stuff regarding the factory kit electronics and different things like that. So the nice thing is it's all together, it's all designed to work together, so you don't have to worry about marrying up two different systems. But there's a lot of different stuff that you can get from them. If you want the exact build, you can go to Superbike Unlimited. We got all the electronics from them. They know the exact order, they know all the different stuff. Go to Superbike Unlimited and they can get you kind of hooked up with that. It's also my crew chief's company, so he's also worked on the bike this year and seen the different stuff and knows more than what just an average retailer might. But you get the MRCK kit, and I have to use my notes to actually list all this stuff out. But the MRCK kit is the main thing that you need. That's the big thing to go racing on this bike. The MRCK kit comes with the ECU, the dash, the handlebar switches, and the wiring harness itself. So everything electronic on this bike that's stock comes off, goes in a bin, and you never use it again. You replace all that stuff, which is then nice because you're able to look and inspect and make sure everything's all fine. But you need to get some other things in addition to just the MRCK kit. You need to get a GPS, wiring harness mounting kit, airbox plugs, throttle fly-by-wire system, and a bunch of different other things. So there's some other things that still need to get beyond just the MRCK kit. If you're pricing the system out online, there's some other stuff there. Again, if you reach out to Superbike Unlimited, they know everything that I've got and how it all goes together. But make sure that you get the wiring harness mounting kit. When you're sitting there at your computer, you may be thinking, oh, I don't really need to get that, or I can just make something, or it's not that big a deal. I would highly recommend that you get the wiring harness mounting kit. It makes life a lot simpler. You're not having to fabricate any of these different pieces. Whenever we changed motors out on this bike, there's a ton of plugs, a ton of different things going on, and it just eliminates one kind of headache from that stuff. With the electronics on this bike, we're able to control a bunch of different things with it and how it rides. So adjustable traction control, engine braking, there's a bunch of different things that we can do within the electronic system. Having somebody who knows what they're doing with the electronic system is crucial. It's huge. If you don't really know what you're doing, I have no idea how to work any of that software. My crew chief, Freddie Carswell, he knows how to work that stuff and it's great. but there is quite a bit of sophistication. If you can just get a base map from somebody, and if you're wanting to go club race this or do anything like that, maybe even do some Moto America races, if you get a base map, you could probably do a bunch of the stuff just off of that. You don't really need to go too detailed into it, but there is a lot of different stuff. There's a bunch of different things that you can do within the electronic system, where one of the unique features that nobody really used in Moto America last year, we tried it earlier on in the season, but then we kind of moved off of it. But you can actually get it to where this is a 4-cylinder 1000cc bike, but when you get on the gas, it picks itself up on 2 cylinders. And why would you actually want that? What it does is it helps you save the tire, because you're not applying so much power to the rear wheel. You're only giving it about half the power. So it kind of picks itself up like a 600 coming off the corner, but then as you stand the bike up, then it delivers all the power, and it kind of theoretically helps save the side of the tire. For us, we weren't able to do enough testing or development on it to really get it to the way that we want to. There's a bunch of different torque maps, there's a bunch of different things within the electronic system that when you have a crew chief and being able to go and test and do some of the things that we weren't really able to do this last year, that's what gives you a bunch of the data, and you can figure out how to marry the different stuff together. Where we used this system where it would pick itself up on 2 cylinders, but being able to get the right torque map was quite difficult, where we were at the ridge in Seattle, and I'd get on the gas, and then the point in which it would start to put the other 2 cylinders back online, then it got really complicated, and the bike was in wanting to wheelie a ton, and there was a bunch of different stuff kind of going on with that. The electronic system on this bike is incredibly sophisticated, and the nice thing is it all is designed to work together. You don't have to worry about marrying a few different pieces together or anything along that nature. Moving on to the brakes and engine part of our bike build, we used EBC brakes. We used EBC brakes for years, used them since 2020. On my Yamaha R6, we absolutely love them. And then moving up to the BMW this year, we also used their brake lines. For the engine, we pretty much left the engine completely stock. This always kind of blows people's minds, but all we did was we added a Suter clutch for a slipper clutch just to help control the engine brake. But other than that, we left it stock. And even with that, we had one of the fastest top speeds in Seattle. Again, just on a stock motorcycle. With the BMW, we know the engine's really good. We also used the stock air filter. Most people think when you're racing, you gotta have some crazy high flow air filter, but the thing with the high flow air filter is it lets more stuff through. And I know of a Moto America Superbike team that does really, really well, and they use a stock air filter. I use a stock air filter because they've done a lot of testing, and I don't want to have to worry about any of the stuff with that. I'd rather make sure that I'm blocking everything going into the engine rather than having some high flow thing and some particulate or anything like that be passing through our air filter. For the exhaust system, we used Aero exhausts. We used the aluminum can instead of the carbon can, just because if you go down, the aluminum bends, carbon cracks. So we would always recommend using the aluminum can. Wrapping up this bike build process, pretty much anything you see on this bike you can get from Superbike Unlimited. You don't need to worry about where do I get this from, where do I get that from. If you want the exact same bike as me, you can go to Superbike Unlimited's website and get the exact same thing, so you don't have to worry about mixing the right parts together. The electronics are the biggest thing on the bike. That's base block that you've got to get for anything else. The electronics, if you're wanting the exact same thing that I've got, have to get the MRCK package. Honestly, I think the stock electronics are really well. I got to ride a stock bike up in Minnesota on Big Brainerd, and with that, I thought the stock electronics were really, really good. For racing in Moto America, would recommend getting the MRCK package from Alpha. Huge thank you to the Tom Wood Powersports Group, enabling us to go racing last year, and I'm excited on our 3-year deal moving into this next season. Also, if you want one of the best hoodies in the game, you can see me modeling it right now. One of the best things that you'll ever see. It's on my website, nolanlampkinracing.com. Huge thank you to everybody. I can't wait to see you on the track. And again, as a wise man once said, you're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Beamer Boy, forever.
Hi, my name is Elvis Presley, and welcome to my episode on cribs. Welcome to my home on cribs. I don't know, bro.